But we have 3 panelists here today, and they will tell you what it is to do this for the rest of your life, right? So that's what they're here for. So I'm going to first ask them to do a quick round of introduction about their background, what they do, and how they got in this field. So just give us like a short 3 to 5 minute background. And I told you up front, warning, I want to hear something quirky about you that you can share with me. So anybody, please take it away.
Okay, I'll start. My name is Billy Sweetman. I'm the creative director at Simon Entertainment in Decatur, Wisconsin, so right next to Green Bay. I've been doing game stuff for probably 7 years. The way I started in the industry is I actually interned on a film set for a small indie film and said I really wanted to make movies. I did that for about a week and I said, nope, never doing that again. That was way too much work. So I got into video games, which is just the same amount of work, just now you sleep in desks instead of with set bars. So really into weird art hobbies a lot, just on the side. So like 1 year I thought I was going to be a vinyl toy designer, so I got into that really aggressively. And then a year I thought I was going to be a fine arts painter, so I got into that really aggressively. And I do that for about 6 months, and then I'm going back to doing games.
My name is Greg Vaughn. Senior software engineer at the Games Network in Madison. I guess I got into it, well, I started programming 15, 20 years ago. That was pretty young. Pretty much self-taught. I decided that I actually wanted to go into art at that point. I figured worst case scenario, I could do games, it's a worst case scenario. Worst case scenario, I ended up doing commercials or something, doing like 3D art. Best case scenario, I ended up doing games. So during my internship while I was at school, I ended up actually working for a company that I work for now, and I've been there for 5, 6 years, something like that. So, quirky fact about me, I have 25 cats. I don't actually. I can't think of anything quirky about myself. So.
It's also normal.
Yeah.
I'm Rob Martin. I have been doing this longer than probably most people have been alive. It's really scary. I got out of college in 1983 and immediately stepped into the world of online, which is normal for you guys. At the time, it was anything but normal. There was no world of online. That was one of the first places that did that in Miami called Futron. We'll look at that. And since then, I worked at Electronic Arts, Zynga, Rotorbund, AOL in its early days. And I guess, I don't know if this is a quirky fact, but I made an entire career out of being red-green colorblind with no art skills, never written a line of code. And most of the games I like are not the ones where you shoot, but somehow I managed to survive a long time. The really did quirky fact, but that isn't really quirky, that's just sort of a way of working. AOL was started by 11 engineers and a bookkeeper. I married the bookkeeper. And at one point, AOL was a lot of money for stock. Married well.
Awesome. So I didn't introduce myself because honestly, I don't matter today, and so I'm just going to keep that aside. I teach in the College of Business. My name is Chotan Basu, and I'm a good friend of Jeff Harriet. I think our connection through this is 2 areas. One is we play soccer together, and so I have a lot of healthy respect for him for that. And the second thing is I work with student startups and work with companies that are being launched. I think I've been involved with startup for about 24 different companies at different points in my life, working on about 7 right now in some capacity or other. And the creatives and the people who are on the creative side are hot in demand right now. I think a lot of our companies are looking for your skill set, so it's a good time to be in the area you guys are in. So one of the questions I told them I would pose to them, I like to get straight to the point because I'm from business and I want to get to the end point right away, is I told them I'd like them to first start talking a little bit about, and this could lead to a pretty nice discussion, and feel free to kind of go back and forth, and then we'll see if people have questions, is what constitutes success in this industry? I mean, what would you say take, what does it take to succeed in the field you guys are in? So when they make it to their field and the trends and the patterns and the way things are changing, what constitutes success? And take it away, whoever wants to go first.
Let you start. We'll snake.
I'll start this time. And as we answered you at the time, it depends on what you're defining as success. You know, there are tech track people I know who are just awesome technologists and construct massive systems, clients and servers that support millions of players. And there are people who, you know, there are game designers who create great innovative games. One of my good friends that I work with wrote is a guy named Jordan Mechner. You may be familiar with his game Prince of Persia or the movie based on it. And his best game was something called The Last Express. And he spent 4 years making The Last Express. And it's on every game designer I know's shelf. I mean, I'm probably from the earlier era, so my game designers that I know are people like Will Wright or Sid Meier or Ralph Koster of Ultima Online game. So but they all love this game, and I've seen it on all their shelves, and I've never seen it anywhere else. Right? Because it's an awesome game. Every game designer loves it for what it is. And Jordan had it was a project of passion, and he loved doing it. And you know, so there's success in a lot of different areas. One of the things that occurs to me in all of this is I often describe game development as making movies, except you're inventing the projector and the camera every time you make a new movie, or it's doing software without a net, because you have to learn. You know, we all know that Microsoft just fucks up the interface for Excel every time you do a new one, or Word, whatever. But you have to learn it, because you have to learn it, right? You don't have to play our games. You know, when you go to E3, you lose people within seconds on the visuals. You lose them, you know, within 2 seconds on the visual, within 5 seconds on the concept, within 15 seconds on the interface. It's so easy to walk away from what we do. So to me, the most important and interesting thing about game development is human interaction and design, and you can apply that in so many places, and I've watched that happen, this whole concept of gamification. But beyond that, people are doing game things that they don't even know about. It's interface. It's how do you grab somebody with a screen. And that's so applicable to anything right now. So when you think about success, you know, success might not be, you know, I made the next, all I can think of now is old game, Metal Gear Solid. I made the next, you know, whatever, Halo. There's just 1,000 ways to have success.
Yeah, I would say it's success is definitely incremental. You know, your first success is probably having 10 people play a game that you made. It might suck, it might be the worst game, but you've got an audience at that point, right? The next time you make a game, you only have 20 people, and you just try to keep broadening your audience. And you know, the more people keep playing different games that you make, every time it's a success. Even failures, I mean, you learn from them. They are successes also. So.
I feel like I'm gonna reiterate on for everything, but for me, it's really just releasing things in the wild and having people that you don't know view it, play it, experience it, and then learning from everything that you do. I'm a big fan of, I mean, I still don't know how games get made. To me, it's the craziest thing ever, having a group of 25, 30, even 2 people come to some sort of consensus and put something together out there in the wild. It is absolutely a phenomenon that even happens. So that is, to me, a huge success, regardless of how good it is, how bad it is, how much everyone likes it, how well the reviews are. Just it being released is a huge success. And also the things that you don't release, just knowing when to say, like, you know, I've learned from this project, let's put it aside, let's take that and put it on the next one. It's not, you know, not everything's ready to go out. So that's really success for me, it's just learning and getting stuff out there to have people play it.
Thanks. Why don't I offer the mic to anybody who has a question? I have a few more for them, but if anybody has a question they would like to ask the panel. Yeah.
Hi, I'm John Kinsel. I have a question for the learning games. Where are you guys located again?
In Madison.
And do you guys have published games? Do you work with schools, and what's your general area of or audience that you aim this for?
So it's a pretty complex question, but I'll try to answer it quickly. So we are both grant funded and contract funded. So a lot of the games that we've created have been based on grants for specific scientific research. For example, making a game about viruses and how viruses actually work in the body, what they do. So in that game, we ended up working with scientists on campus and basically created this game out of the content that we were working on. And then actually creating something that was palatable and easy to understand for, in that case, it was a pretty youngish age range, probably early junior high or so, up through high school. It's simple, but it has some complex topics. We've made games though for preschool age, like 3 years old, up past college age students. So learning is one of those things, obviously, we never stop doing. So our games kind of cover the whole gamut.
Where Mass is it located?
We're right on campus.
Oh, gotcha.
So.
Did you get your question answered?
Yes, I did, thank you.
Right. Anybody else have a question?
Hi guys. I just want to know where you guys think the industry is going to move in the next few years with the rise of like mobile games, alt games, micro games, all of the different trends that are coming up. What do you think is going to be the next thing to rise up?
AR and VR probably is, I would say, pretty good.
I think everyone needs to check out The Void. I don't know if you guys haven't seen that YouTube video, which is hilarious because it's something that late night when we were crunching, we talk about that same exact principle, using VR in physical space to play games. I think VR is really cool and interesting, but you still have, you're still just sitting in a chair or standing somewhere, but to actually be running around a full foam environment while they're rendering graphics over the top of the environment, I think that's going to be really exciting. I think games are also just going to expand into everything. We see a lot with just gamification. Our companies contact a lot about gamification for business applications, hiring processes, all kinds of weird stuff that we sort of apply game principles to. So you're slowly gamifying everything now.
I've watched a lot of trends and changes over the years. When I was at Maxis, I was the CEO at Maxis for a while, and we were starting to do some CP3000 and a quirky little game called The Sims that we couldn't figure out exactly what to do with. And we went and talked to the folks at Origin who just launched Ultima Online, and they said, persistent world, what else would you do? Of course, that's the obvious answer to online. I like to think we're early enough in online that there could be multiple answers here, right? And I was at Zynga when we were sitting down and saying, well, EA is boxed in. There's nowhere they can go because creatively Ubisoft hasn't beat. Where do you have them beat in the Facebook space, and Activision hasn't beat in the persistent world space. And and in a heartbeat, Facebook went away and mobile arrived and nobody knew, right? I mean, the short answer is, if I knew the answer, I wouldn't tell you. I would be fabulously wealthy, right? Or I would tell you we would go off and make something, right? But the reality is, sort of going back to the Maxis thing, is it just goes in different directions. There's a place for a persistent world, even looking at the mobile space, which everybody's running the mobile space. Whoever figures out how to do shooters in the mobile space, or Madden football well in the mobile space, will probably make a lot of money, but that's hard to do. And EA has just, in the last 2 years, has just become more successful. They cranked up their stock price by shedding a bunch of other stuff and saying, you know what, there's still a huge console world. There's just a world of people who love these games. They're going to continue to love these games. So I think that's, getting back to the point of passion that we talked about, actually, not quite here yet, but the cool thing is going to happen in a space where somebody has a passion to make something cool happen, and then a whole bunch of market people are going to go over and see that. Just shortly before, real-time strategy games were actually not, there was a phase where nobody played them. It was just not a big thing, and then Command and Conquer came out, and everybody ran over to that. StarCraft, yeah, and the character.
World of Warcraft?
No, before that. Anyway, there's a genre RPG.
Yeah.
Diablo thing. No one was playing RPG. You couldn't get anybody to fund an RPG game, and then Diablo came out. Suddenly, you would read reports on the market, and it was like 30% of the market is an RPG game. Well, 30% of the market is Diablo, because some people make a freaking awesome game, and that's really the thing. Go make an awesome game, and that's where the market's going to go. There's going to be a piece of that everywhere. It's going to be something in VR. It's going to be something in mobile. It's going to be something in console.
On your watches.
On your watches.
Okay, I'm going to ask you a question. I think I am, the female faculty who teach game. So that's the reason we can come here. How many female students for game? So my question is, how about female artists and female designers in the game industry? Are they going to hire female? So they have skills, definitely for female artists here. You see, we have a bunch of group of wonderful female artists. So, answer this question?
I mean, I used to be part of the hiring process at Codebase, and we always kept an eye out for female artists, designers, and programmers because we didn't care who it was. We just wanted the best of the best. But we always wanted that different perspective because we always felt that our shop, we had at max 22 developers, and we only had 2 ladies in there. One was an animator, and one was a programmer. And we always felt that detracted from our facility because everyone has a different sort of view on how things should be put together. Even like amongst the sort of dude party that we had, everyone had different point of views. But the more diversity that we can get sort of in companies and in teams and everything, you get different, it's just for the best. It helps everyone grow, it helps everyone make cool stuff. And different things come from a different angle, different story, everyone has different backgrounds.
I guess I've been in a kind of a similar position. I don't know exactly what it is, but it seems like female applicants are limited. So I'd like to think there haven't been, I think, in the full rounds of hiring, we haven't had any female applicants. So
Yeah, it's I think it's one of the bigger issues. Is just the sheer number of applicants you get. When I was with EA when we bought the Maxis studio, and there was kind of unsurprisingly, given the Maxis culture, there were a lot of women there, and there were women in development, and we brought in one of the strongest women in the industry I've ever known, Lucy Bradshaw, I look her up to, who has been kind of the champion of SimCity and The Sims and the Maxis brand and feel. And it was a great studio where we had a lot of women in roles of production and roles of art, not so many in programming, but that was a while ago. And there's no question it creates a more interesting, not just diverse for the sake of diversity, but more interesting environment and a kind of more realistic environment because it doesn't feel like the Doom Fest of, I think we're all making a game on a football field as we're tackling each other. So I think it should be better. I think we would all say we're just as excited to get more women's resumes and to hire.
That's good. That's good for our.
So it's all your responsibility.
Yeah, definitely. I will recruit more female students. Yeah. We see that right now, 90% are male students.
I'm just going to add on to the hiring process that I see there's a question back there, and go to that next. Just adding on to the question she asked, what do you look for in a candidate? So when you're hiring, what are the top 2, 3 things you're saying? This person comes across as this person stands out. What might be some of those things? And this may be your point about passion that you mentioned earlier.
Yeah. So.
Just ask my question.
Oh, okay. I read your mind too. I do that too, by the way.
I would say there's 3 main things. One is a passion for a thing that you do, and it might not always be games. I have a passion for like card games. I'm a social. Like when Zynga came along, I was in heaven because I had gone through an entire career of working on these kind of hardcore games, and I'm really kind of more of a casual gamer myself. But interestingly, I have a passion for organization and structure and getting things done, and I have a passion for every game that you make. My wife used to say, "You're doing hockey again, NHL 95, 96, 97, like did you not get it right the first time?" even if you're using mostly the same technology and tools, it's a completely different thing because the market has changed and the design ideas have changed and you figured out new capabilities. So it's always, and then you've got to figure out risks. My passion was always, what's the best thing we can do and mitigate risk and get an awesome thing done that everyone will love. So if you bring up a passion for a thing that works for that. Two is a discipline. The other two are sort of think globally and act locally. Act locally is be really strong in what you do. If you're a programmer, be a great programmer, write a lot of code. If you're an artist, do a lot of art. And the third piece is think globally. And so many programs, and as I understand it briefly in talking with Alec earlier, this is not one of them, but so many programs are very focused on, here's your code, here's your art. And I've talked to a bunch of different programs, and my question is, where's the psychology? Where's the sociology? Where's all the stuff that needs to design? And how is that part of the program? And Alec, who I talked to earlier, he was focused in programming, but had a minor, I guess, in communication, and he left here and got a job. He's writing a story, which is awesome, right? And that drives so much of game design. So think about the whole picture. Like we want people who are not only good at what they do, but are thinking, how does this fit in? Like, what's the overall thing I'm trying to get done? More so than just, I can come in and code for you.
Yeah, I guess kind of what you were saying. So one of the things that I guess I really look for is, at least in programming, definitely be a generalist. If someone comes in and they are the best AI programmer, that's great, but you're probably going to be one of either all by yourself or one of two programmers on a project on a small team, like what kind of what we do. So if you only have one exact thing that you know how to do, then you're obviously not that's cool, but you're probably not going to come out of school going directly to engine design and stuff like that. Get good at gameplay, programming, understand, navigation and stuff like that. There's a whole lot of time to talk about that, but understand a little bit about all of it. The other thing, I guess, that I think is just as important is personality. Again, on a really small team, if you don't mesh with the people that you work with, then it's not going to work. So in the past, I've actually bypassed candidates that didn't mesh well with the people that we work with. We've gone with someone that was less experienced, but it was just a better fit.
For me, it's always, what are you doing with your free time? I kind of don't care what people do in school or what they do at their job, because they are supposed to do that. You're supposed to do good in school. You're supposed to do what you get paid to do. So what is your real passion? What are you doing in your free time? A lot of the people we've hired have released games just while they're working with us. That's what they're doing on the nights of the weekend. They're working on paintings, and they might have a comic book that they're doing. To me, that shows real drive, real passion for something. It doesn't necessarily have to be exactly related to the field. We have a guy he's probably one of the best animators I've ever met. He's really passionate about rebuilding his car, so that's all he does. But it shows that he is a passionate person, and you're going to get good work out of him. And I think that's really, really big. So whatever your field is, just make sure that you're out there doing it, not because you're supposed to, but because you actually want to. And so doing that in your free time will really show that you want to do that.
I want to reiterate 2 points because I think they're really huge, and I can't overstate it. They're really, really incredible. There's a passion and fit, or I guess one's a tweak on one. You guys are going to come out of here, you're going to feel like you know how to make things about games. You're going to have made a lot of games. Hopefully, you'll have done it many cycles and whatever. It's a hard thing to go in and pitch to people. I've made a bunch of games and not come across feeling like you're going to be an awkward personality misfit, because you're also going to be talking to people who have made a lot of games. And I know, depending on when you come out of college, I came out of college, again, pretty well born in Michigan, where there were no jobs at all, right? And I literally had to leave the state to get a job. And So you feel like you just want to get a job. Think about getting a job as being a fit. I mean, it's got to be the right group of people that you go talk to. You got to feel like you fit with them, and they got to feel like they fit with you. So your passion is aligned with theirs. Otherwise, it's going to be sort of a weird personality thing, and it's not bad. It's just not the job that was for you. And the other piece is the generalities, because especially as the industry, one thing I think we can say about the industry is that it goes through these phases of contraction and expansion. But you know, big companies, there's contraction, and little companies all start up, and then they get bought up, and then they become part of big companies, and then all the people leave because it's horrible to work for a big company and start over again. At a small company, I mean, I've passed over 70 people as well. It was like, well, I need an AI programmer, but I only need an AI programmer for like 3 months to focus on AI, and then I need him to go do some server work. So be able to, you know, either know server work or have done it, or know enough to move forward.
That's a really good point. Also, like just do your research for the places you're going to look into, because smaller studios need a person who's good at one thing, but is nimble enough to kind of do everything. Coming from an art background, I've done everything from interface design, logo design, environment art, character models, animations, light UI programming. I've done gameplay testing, like, you know, but my background was just art, like just environment art. So like I had to expand to do all that stuff. But I always worked at smaller, sort of an indie studio. But I do have friends who work at big studios, and they, you know, they had their one track focus, and they were good at all these other things. But once they got there, all they did was AI stuff. So kind of do your research when you're looking at different studios, and ask a lot of people. Like, go to conferences and talk to them too. Talk to people at studios that you want to work at. A lot of them are really friendly. Just send them an invite on LinkedIn, and talk to them, and they'll get some questions and answers back to you.
Yeah, well, usually they'll talk about their studios. And I didn't really use terrible working for big companies. I work for big companies, and it's fine. It's just a different thing. And I have the same deal in my little company of people who've been in the industry for a long time. I'm colorblind, like I said. I mean, I'm doing the data tables for all the behaviors. I'm running particle editor and going out and getting libraries of particles and tweaking them for what I need. And then they say, why is the dragon pink? Sorry, wrong color. But yeah, it's just, and I'm sure we haven't walked through it yet, but I'm sure you guys are all going, yeah, that's what we did.
Can you speak a little bit about soft skills in terms of, and you mentioned networking, you know, like LinkedIn stuff, maybe collaborations, anything you guys can expand on where besides the design, besides the programming, what are some things they should be paying attention to?
For me, like one of the best places to go is probably GDC. Networking is huge out there. Talk to everyone and anyone you possibly can. You never know who they might be, where they're from, or where they might work, and if they're looking. You know, just be really friendly, be interested in what everyone else is doing. Make a presence of yourself on the internet, because then people start to know you. One of the things that I always say is one of the least known soft skills is just internet presence. If I can look you up, which everyone does, the second a job application comes across the desk, you get Google, and they can see that, oh, you're on, you know, the Unity forums posting answers to questions, or you're over here on TigSource in discussions and stuff like that. Or you can kind of see, you can gather somebody's personality just based on how they kind of conduct themselves there. You know, and just be really nimble, and, you know, be super friendly.
I don't really have a lot else to add to that. I guess, I mean, yeah, networking is huge. Writing is a big thing. So, you know, one of the kind of entry-level positions is, you know, QA. And if, you know, your things that you report on, the bugs that you discover, aren't clearly reported, then they're kind of useless. So, but, you know, it doesn't work out very well. So, be a good clear writer.
Well, so my nephew, when I was in electronic arts, my nephew came in and he worked 80 hours a week laying fiber optic cable. And I said, if you're gonna work 80 hours a week, you should do something that's more rewarding. And he was more rewarding at the time. And so I said, come in and get a job in testing. And he was like, okay, I can play games for 80 hours a week, sure. Not what it is. It's testing, it's different. He worked his way up. He was the executive producer of Mad Football. You know, game companies for the most part, at least historically, maybe not so much these days, but the big ones, but there's no fighting with, skill and knowledge and effort. You get where game companies are too, until they get to a certain size, there's too much at stake. There's too much opportunity to not reward people who are working hard and being there. When the opportunity knocks, whoever's there is the guy that's doing it. And historically, what that means is usually a lot of long hours and an inability to get away from anything. The reason I keep looking at my phone is because we're literally sending somebody to Apple these hours as I'm here in Wisconsin, so I'm trying to answer things. But it is pretty grueling. You guys probably know that from all your game jams. It's great. And at some point you look up and you go, I'm 50 years old, and I've never done anything but working on games. But it's also kind of a lifelong obsession that you end up doing because every time there's a new thing to focus on. So, drive is still and passion is still the most important soft skill. And conflict resolution is huge. And then as we were also talking about, which is why it takes all this time, be into something else. Was it you or Al was saying earlier that somebody's advice was just go off and do?
Yeah, he said stop playing video games and go do other things.
Yeah. Don't be obsessed about, well, I know all of the features of all of this last round of games and synthesizing all of them into some uber game. No, the new cool game is going to be from some guy who went off and found some other dynamic like city planning or Greek mythology or something military or whatever, and brought that into the game space and changed the way that we play games for that stuff. Not we mashed up everything that everybody already knows and put it.
I've got two more that I think that a lot of people first time in the industry don't always have, and it's good to develop, is have a thick skin and don't take anything personally. We used to get a lot of new guys who you give them some feedback on something, they take it very personally, and no one's ever trying to hurt anyone's feelings. It's an opinion. So just always take it with a grain of salt, and then try to look at what they're actually getting at. Some people aren't good at expressing how they feel about something, so they might look at a game and be like, well, this doesn't feel good. And that's all the feedback you'll get from them, and you'll kind of be hurt because you're like, well, I spent hours on this, it feels great. But start prodding them and say, well, why does it feel good? And try to get it out. Sometimes it feels good. But that's always one that, as an artist, I had to learn that the hard way.
Nobody goes at the programmers and say, well, some people do, but they're usually technologists, but all of us producer and creative types or designer types, we don't, the code is like the code. It's like, that's all it do. Yeah, the artists, we just go at like mad.
I can't go into the world of that code.
I just, but the programmers don't get there, and they're like, well, the worst programmers of all are the ones who go, I can't make this work, and the answer is really not, they can't make it work, it's that they don't like the art, they don't want to make it work. And then you drill down on them, and then you really trust them, it's terrible. But everybody has opinions about the art.
Any more questions? Wow. I saw you on the first question.
So I have a somewhat targeted question going off of what you were just said before. I guess the last one I had. Just as far as what can go into a game, something that I found certainly throughout my years here at Whitewater is that I'm pretty passionate about literature and what can kind of be read from developer's point of view as far as what is in the game. So I guess in all your experience, how important would you say things like that are things that when you play as a player, when you play a game, as a developer, when you see players playing a game and you get feedback from it, how important is it to you that they maybe try to pry and understand, what the development process is like and what your thoughts are and things like that. Does that make sense?
I don't think game players ever care about the development process and what went into it. Again, 2 minutes to lose you on graphics, 5 seconds to lose you on concept and 10 seconds to interface. I would say I'm fascinated by watching inside the actor studio, not inside the round table, the Hollywood Reporter, I think they do a round table of Oscar-nominated and Emmy-nominated actors and actresses, and they talk about the process, and they talk about truths, and how you get to truths. And I think that's true of all art, and I think that's true of games. And I think when you, games that resonate and work, they resonate and work because they have that same kind of truth behind them. So to me, the foundation is really critical. I mean, Will took 10 years to make this in, right? And Will fought tooth and nail to make it not be what it was eventually. One of the untold stories of game development. The guy who ran the studio, the GM, said, you know, you have to make it about the characters. And Will was trying to make a real-time strategy game about the home tactics, which is an example of, you know, let's go grab something from out in left field and bring it into the game space, right? His was home design. His was the efficiency of being in a home and the level of decoration and feeling good about where you are in the home, you know, the wallpaper and the layout and all that stuff, and how that makes you happy as a person. And so he's got these things walking around reacting to the environment is all it did. And other people were saying you have to make people care about them. That was the truth of The Sims, right? Had we just launched a game that was about, you know, pinball machines in homes and characters going, you know, there's nothing there. It's not, and so when he said, I can't make people believe that those are people. And we're like, well, you have to make them believe that people. It's not a game. It's just a simulator. And so he did, and it probably would have been some kind of game, but it would not have been what it was. And that's the truth underlying that. And that's the kind of piece of psychology and sociology that you get with literature and things like that, where you've got a grounding in something real that we keep coming back to and saying, we have to make this about a simulation of a family and a household, not just a building that drives you coming back to that experience. So the player cares when you've done it. They care when you haven't done it. They don't care kind of what the process is. They just, if you don't have that underlying there, then I think you're missing something that the market will react to one way or the other. And that's not even story-based games, which I think are obviously fundamentally very true.
Did that answer your question?
Yeah.
Do you have a question?
I just want to know how you guys feel about the message of some games that seem to perpetuate stereotypes. Some are sexist, some are racist, and from the end, is there something that you do about it or not?
I think you can. So actually one of the projects we worked on is called Fair Play, and it was made specifically for instructors and faculty to, I guess, more deeply understand implicit bias. So that's, not over racism or biases or things like that, but just small like slidings and things that just happen under the surface. So I mean, you can directly, try to make an impact like that. But I don't know, I guess.
I think as a whole, like, the game space can be used for just educating people, and that will eventually start to weed some of that out. Some of the most interesting games that I've played recently or heard about is it was a Kickstarter campaign for a game that was about the Iranian Revolution, telling the story from the revolutionary side, and I thought that was really interesting. Or Papers, Please, and kind of the experiences you get where it's like, oh, they're telling me more about the culture or something that I didn't know. I could watch a documentary about it, but now I kind of get a live through it. And just educating people in that will have people start to make smarter decisions or more accurate decisions on when they start to make stuff. Because I agree, I think the AAA space is very childish. kind of feels like high schoolers have been putting all this stuff together for so long, and it needs to grow up a little bit. And I think the indie side of it is doing a really good job of doing that in certain aspects. And it would be great if that started to carry over into the AAA space, and I think it will. And I think they're doing it with education by the subject matter they're picking for their games and for their stories that they want to tell.
I'd say you guys probably know better than I do because you're in school and I can't know the difference. But there are archetypes and there are stereotypes, right? And as far as I can tell, one's like good and one's bad, right? But they are attempts to simplify and make cardboard and easily graspable certain things. And I think what you're talking about with indies and AAAs is true everywhere, right? It's true in movies as well. Big AAA movies, and we need a cardboard hero, we need a cardboard heroine or damsel in distress, we need a cardboard bad guy. And that's kind of the business that they're in. And for whatever reason, that appeals to large people, and I think that's also true. I personally believe rap music doesn't make people bad. Rap music grew out of an environment that was a certain thing and appealed to certain people. And there are going to be people to whom archetype, stereotype-driven games are going to, those games are going to appeal to them, and it's going to be large. And you're not going to change games by saying we won't make those kinds of games because someone will make those kinds of games. I saw horrible games when I was a Yale. I saw games that made Mortal Kombat look, PG, like because we were trying to outgross other people. We bought, some companies that made said, look at our Mortal Kombat game where you spin the head off and rip the spine out. It's like, who wants that? And we said, we're not shipping that. That's horrible. But for the most part, they don't have a lot of taste. So I think the best you can do is just go have that fight yourself. I was at Human Head. We didn't launch Prey 2, and I'm sad because there were very cool things in it, but at the same time I managed to keep my resume completely free of shooters, which I'm happy with, that portion of it. So I don't want to do it, and it sounds like you guys don't want to do it. I love learning things too. It's sort of much more interesting than cardboard characters, but you can't stop it from happening because someone's going to do it because it's pretty lucrative. I mean, it's really a sort of a societal reflection as opposed to a developer's charter.
That's a good point, though. I mean, you're going to go out of here with the skill set to change it, right? So, make something different.
I'm just going to add a small piece to that. We do see similar situations in our field also with businesses and startups and stuff. And one of the things which we have realized is that this takes time. Things like this, was you're trying to get a cultural change. A lot of it is about awareness, but you're going to start somewhere. So just get it going, and over a period of time, people see the value of it. But it's not that. There's serious dollars behind some of this stuff, and it's just there. So, are we almost out of time? So, I'll just end with this little thing. This is one of my favorite stories about people who are creative. So I share it with you. And I'm telling somebody else's story here. But anyway, the story goes like this. There was a teacher teaching in a classroom, and this teacher she's got all these students in the class, and they're drawing, and it's like a middle school. And this young lady who sits in the back never pays attention, and she's like drawing away furiously. So this teacher walks up, like wondering, she never gets engaged with what she's doing. So she walks up and says, "What are you drawing?" She says, "I'm drawing a picture of God." And she says, "But no one knows what God looks like." She said, "They will in a minute." Right? So you guys get to create stuff, and you are in an amazing field. And I think you've got a great life ahead of you. I think you've got some great feedback. I think, enjoy what you do. And they're here, so you could probably ask them some questions, after the panel's over. But let's give them a round of applause. Thank you.
Thank you.